Good morning or afternoon, depending on which period it is right now. I hope you're having a good day. Today we're going to go over this is 3.5, is the binomial of factor. The problems that we'll be doing from the homework are 1C, 2B, and number 4. So we'll get a good mix in. Okay, so before we get started, recall that this is the golden rule of today. You have a factor if the remainder after division is 0. Okay. Then you have found a factor. So looking at problem number 1C, now you should put this in a box in your notes somewhere if it's not already there. If it is, you know what, write it again because this is super, super important. We're going to be dealing with it for the next few lessons. But for problem number 1C, we want to see, is g of x, is that a factor? And we're going to be answering this like yes, no. Is that a factor of the big polynomial up here? So essentially we want to see, hey, when we divide, do we get a remainder of 0? So we're going to use synthetic division. And to set it up, we'll set our divisor, the guy we're dividing by, equal to 0. And I get x equals -8. And that -8 is what goes out here in the box. Okay. In my class, we don't usually use a box. We use something that looks like this. Same thing, no big deal. Okay, now over here, we need to set up our coefficients of the original equation. That would be this guy. So our coefficients are 1, +9, +14, +50, and 9. And notice that we are going in descending order, so we don't have to make any adjustments. And 4, 3, 2, power of 1, and then nothing. They're all accounted for, so we have no 0 placeholders. So let's write them out. 1, 9, 14, 50, and 9. Okay, we'll draw a line. And our first step is always to bring down the very, very first term. 1. 1 times -8 is -8. And then we just add downwards. That's 1. 9 minus 8 is 1. 1 times -8 is -8. And then we'll add again. That's 6. 6 times -8 is -48. And then we're combining our like terms. 50 minus 48 is 2. 2 times -8 is -16. And I already can tell this is not going to be a factor because our remainder is not 0. 9 minus 16 is -7. Wah, wah, wah. Our remainder is not equal to 0. That means that this g of x here did not go evenly into our big polynomial. If it doesn't go evenly in, it means it's not a factor. So no. And I want you to write out this entire sentence. No, g of x is not a factor of f of x. It's kind of like if I said, is 3 a factor of 7? Is 3 a factor of 7? Well, when I divide it in, I get a remainder of 1. 3 goes into 7 2 times, but then I have a remainder of 1. So therefore, it's not a factor. Same deal. Okay, next question. 2b. Now it wants me to see, okay, again, is g of x a factor of f of x? So when I divide it in, I'm basically looking for the remainder. So let's get this started. First, to figure out what goes in our box, we need to set our divisor equal to 0. Let's show the work. And x equals -2/3. So please do not freak out. It's okay to have the fraction. We just need to show a little extra work on the side. But you guys can do this. All right, next. We need to list out our coefficients. That's 3, positive 5, negative 34, and negative 24. We don't need any placeholder zeros because it goes 3, 2, 1, and then nothing. And they're all in order. Cool, so let's get started. First step, we'll bring down the 3 as always. And now 3 times negative 2/3, I'm going to show that work off to the side. So these guys will cancel and give me negative 2 over 1. Combine like terms, 5 minus 2 is 3. And now I have to multiply again. Well, we just did this. 3 times negative 2/3 is negative 2. We just did that over here. We don't need to show our work again. Now, negative 34 minus 2 is negative 36. And now I have to multiply negative 36 over 1 times negative 2 over 3. So these two negatives will turn into a positive. And then 36 over 3 gives me 12 and 1. 3 goes into 36 12 times. So my answer is just 12 times 2 over 1. That's 24. And that goes here. Okay, we're combining our like terms. Negative 24 plus 24 gives me 0. And remember, that's what I was looking for. I wanted to see what is our remainder. Since our remainder does equal 0, that means that, hey, we did. We found a factor. Yes. G of x is a factor of f of x because it goes evenly into it when we divide. There's no leftover, there's no remainder. All right, last problem. Number 4. So, you just finished watching Miss Gleason's video on the notes. And so you know that there's 2 ways that we can do this problem. Okay, so here's a box of ice cream sandwiches. It has a volume that's represented by this function. Okay, it's this big polynomial. I'm just going to rewrite that. V equals x cubed minus 4x squared minus 20x minus 48. Okay. And then Jesus declared he could determine the length, width, and height. And if he's right, then we'll get the whole class ice cream. Okay, so is he correct? So we could do one of 2 things. One of our options is, since we know that volume equals length times width times height, well, we can multiply all of these together, representing our length, width, and height, and see if this statement is true. If our volume does indeed equal our x plus 6 times x minus 4 times x minus 2, and we'll multiply this all out. Whoops, not like that. Remember, we'd focus on the last 2 terms first. Okay, and then you would go from there. So we could do that, or we can just check if each of these is a factor of our volume. Because what we're claiming, what Jesus is claiming, is that these are all the correct factors. This times this times this. Factors are pieces that multiply, and he's saying that these are the 3 pieces that will multiply to give me my volume. So I can just check that claim one by one. Let's start with x plus 6. Let's see if this is truly one of our factors. So now this turns into a more familiar problem. The question is x plus 6 a factor of that big volume polynomial? I'll call it v of x. So let's set it up. Using synthetic division, set x minus 6 equal to 0, so negative 6 goes in our box. Since we want to check if it's a factor of volume, let's get our volume coefficients. So first of all, we have a coefficient of 1, negative 4, negative 20, and negative 48. We'll write those down. negative 20, and negative 48. Again, in our minds, we're checking to make sure that we're not missing any terms. 3, 2, 1, 0. And we're also checking that this is indeed descending order, which it is, so we're good. Okay, draw the line, and now we begin. Bring down the 1. 1 times negative 6 is negative 6, and negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10. Again, negative 10 times negative 6 is positive 60, and negative 20 plus 60 is 40. Again, 40 times negative 6 is negative 240, and I don't really need to do the math. I can already tell that my remainder is not equal to 0. Okay, but I'll do the math anyway. Negative 48 and negative 240, well, same signs add, so that means that'd be 288, but then we keep the sign of the bigger number, which is negative. Yeah, that's definitely not 0. So that means that x minus 6, like, no, x minus 6 is not a factor of our volume polynomial. That big guy, I don't really want to write him out. And since he's not a factor, that means the teacher won't be buying ice cream sandwiches for everybody, and that would be our justification. Basically stating x minus x was not a factor, and you can further explain because when we divide, we get a non-zero remainder. Basically, our remainder doesn't equal 0. Okay, that's it for today. Hope you have a good rest of your evening.